So you've got the chlorine flowing past the zircon crystals, and the polonium just says, I love you, and off it goes.
Welcome back to Truth Seekers. The numbers will be up there again, and there's a lot of technical information there. As I said, on their website, answersingenesis.org, just as it sounds, answersingenesis.org. You just put into their search engine on the website Radiohalos, and you get this information and a lot more. As he says later on in this film, that his research is continuing, and they continue to find out more about all this, but they definitely feel that you definitely have firm evidence of 100 million years plus of nuclear decay happening very, very rapidly, so that the rate had changed in the past and is not the same as we see it today. Vern, would you like to share anything at all in relation to this, or?
I have some experience with some of this. I'm still kind of trying to wrap my arms around a little bit of this because I didn't walk in really prepared with all the understanding of which things are transported by what. When I was doing some research that had some relation to this, when I started working on my PhD about 40 years ago, one of the first things I did was I spent about 6 months reading a book called The Natural Radiation Environment, because I was doing some work in measuring radiation from soils to measure snow for flood forecasting. One of the things that I recall very clearly was that uranium is soluble in water, so it can be transported by water. I know that radon in the gas form can attach to things like snow, for example, if it's in the air. So it can be moved through a liquid or a gas that it's embedded in, even if it's not chemically attached. We had that problem when sometimes we were measuring the radiation coming up through the snow on a meter, and if it was snow, then the snow would grab the radon that was coming up out of the ground through the snow into the air and deposit on the surface of the snow, and you see a sudden increase in the count rate. So, but what he just mentioned there about polonium being very much attracted to chlorine, that's the first time I've heard that. So I relate to some of this. I understand the issues. I'm still waiting to understand it better, but I think it's really exciting. And the thing with the uranium halos and the polonium halos being side by side, that's very significant. So I'm still watching it right now. I'm kind of catching this with you for the first time here to really get my arms around it. The things I really would want to look at before I would comment too much more on it would be really to know in which phases would the different decay atoms be transported by water. I understand the annealing temperature at 150 degrees centigrade, so it would remove any indication of what had happened prior to that. I want to go back and revisit it because really the results from a different part of the rate project, and that was the diffusion rate of helium in the zircons, really relates pretty clearly to all of this, and it's pretty exciting. I first read Gentry's work probably 30 years ago, and he was under the idea, as was mentioned in the film clip, that the radiohalos, or sometimes called paleochroic halos, were an indication of fiat creation, instantaneous creation. But the coexistence of the polonium halos and the uranium halos in the same layer of the biotite really gives a lot of evidence for what he's saying in this, I think. So I'm sorry, I'm with it part of the way. It's very fascinating. You are tickling my curiosity with all of this, I have to say.
Well, you can look it up on Answers in Genesis.
I can look it up.
Because he's got this paper.
Tell them where to look it up, too.
I have twice, answersingenesis.org. But this paper that he says we've prepared a model to see if this works. Yeah. And he did further research, and he published a paper in 2009 on the fact that these hydrothermal fluids when you find more fluid, you find more radiohalos.
Yeah. One of the things I really would want to look for, and I need to dig into it more, and I guess I just have to confess I haven't had the discipline to do that. But I am aware that the granites can hold significant amounts of water, and that at different temperatures the water can be bound in the crystalline structure, and at different levels of the temperature water will be driven off that's bound at different energy levels. And so you can get different cutoff points where you can generate free water flowing that could transport, for example, transport the radon or transport uranium, or in this case, transport the chlorine that's going to grab the polonium down to the concentration center. So with the idea of accelerated nuclear decay, which really seems so clearly evident from the other study dealing with the helium diffusion rates in the zircons, it indicates that there had to be, if that happens, you're going to generate a lot of heat somewhere in the crystals. In fact, one of the big questions is to creationists is, where does all the heat go? Brent Dalrymple, when he testified in that court case 20 years ago or more, he called it a tiny mystery. It's not a tiny mystery. But another mystery is, where does all the heat go? But what happens then with that, if you have some cause for accelerated nuclear decay that comes in a very short period of time, that's also very likely to go through one of those thresholds of temperature that would free water from being trapped in a fixed position in the granite crystal to flow and transport. So it would really go together. I can give you that much, but I can't give you much more right now. I'm sorry.
Well, you know, on the Answers in Genesis website, they point out, and I printed out these pages there, 12 other things or 11 other things that point to a very young Earth. And of course, God in the Bible says it was all created in 6 days, not in millions or billions of years. And there's other evidence in the Bible that seems to indicate God knows what he's saying. He would have used other expression rather than 6 days and using the same term days throughout the Bible if he was trying to say, no, it's millions of years or something like that. And so this just adds more evidence. We've shown so much evidence. I mean, the evidence for Jesus, which is the key thing, is the most important. But a couple other things they mention here is that there's not enough mud on the floor of the ocean for millions of years, certainly a billion years, to have transpired. They say that each year water and winds erode about 25 billion tons of dirt from the continents and deposit it in the ocean. The average depth of all the mud in the whole ocean, including continental shelves, is less than 400 meters. And they say here, according to secular scientific literature, that process presently removes only 1 billion of the 25 billion tons a year. So as far as anyone knows, the other 24 billion tons accumulate. At that rate, erosion would deposit the present amount of sediment in less than 12 million years, which is narrowing it down from the billions of years. And go ahead, or hundreds of millions.
And because this is away from our Radiohalos for just a minute.
But that's okay. That's, yeah, sure.
There's a book. I have not read the book. I saw a table from the book. The book, as I recall, was named Chemical Oceanography. And it was referenced in a very good book by Ron Weissong, a veterinarian, interestingly, called The Creation-Evolution Controversy. Weissong published the book about 35 years ago, and it was almost like an encyclopedia of creation-evolution questions. It's still a very valuable resource. But as I recall, he had a list of tins of heavy metals. And of course, the heavy metals cannot evaporate from the ocean.